Okay, so listen, many times when people discuss Jiu-Jitsu and they discuss a particular family of techniques, for example, today we've been working on a particular bottom guard position called the De La Riva, right, named after the person who created this movement. We think perhaps too linearly, right? But we think perhaps too much in terms of step one goes to step two and step three goes to step four, etc. And that's a nice way of thinking when we're trying to learn and get the basic principles down. But at a certain point, we have to understand that, of course, in a live training scenario, every step one that we have, the person we're going against also has a step one, a step two, a step three, and depending on how sophisticated and experienced they are, they may be able to impose several of their steps on us at one time. So Charlie's only at phase one of working the basic mechanics of his De La Riva guard position, and meanwhile I'm imposing 3 or 4 things of my style of passing on him. So I want to just move us away from this consciousness of only thinking about things in terms of pure, literal, linear technique, because it limits our options and it limits our creativity. This means that when we talk about how to pass the guard, or especially how to sweep from the guard, we shouldn't only be thinking in terms of, well, we have to do this pass, and if that doesn't work, then we go to this pass. The passing happens in a general fashion. Passing happens because I go under a leg. Passing happens because I go around both legs to one side. Or passing happens because I go through the middle to one side or the other. Those are the 3 basic ways in which a guard is passed. So now, keeping that in mind, if Charlie has me in his closed guard, but I manage to keep pressure on his chest and his belt, and then I stand up and I keep him tight here, and I start to step away, and I open him, and we end up in this position, right? This is where Charlie began for his own positional stability. This is where he began working and applying the De La Riva bottom guard position. So I've gotten to this, I've stepped away, my angle is good to begin a pass, I have pressure on the leg here and on the leg here, and I'm driving forward. And so what does he do? He holds the sleeve, he holds the heel, he makes a base, he walks himself around the corner, and he goes around the back with the hook, and then he touches, right? Now we know that he can, if I get too close, he can push me away, and if I get too far away, he can pull me in, and then of course, after he pulls me in, he can shoot the arm, and there's the sweep, right? And he follows the sweep, however he follows it, and ends up on top. So now we've got this basic way of moving down. We understand where the grips are. We understand that it's important to keep my knee from turning out, right? And he does that by holding the heel and putting pressure. Now, let's think about this. If it's important for him to keep my knee from turning out, doesn't that mean that it's important for me to turn my knee out, right? If it's important for him to not let me hold, let go 1 second please, to hold his leg, isn't it important for me to hold his leg? If it's important for him to hold the heel so I can't turn my toe this way, right towards the window here, isn't it important for me to turn my toe towards the window? All of the things that he's doing are to prevent me from doing something. And that's exactly what I need to do in order to turn the position to my advantage. So the issue here is that I need to turn the knee. Because when I turn the knee, it makes my leg longer than his hook, and then he loses that positional advantage, right? In order to turn the knee, I also have to turn the toe. So the leg has to go not just like this, but like this. And then I can start to drive the pressure that way. It helps if I can relieve a little bit of the pressure of his hook first. So if I'm able to touch his knee here, and then touch his shin here, and not push that way, but just push straight down. See, the hook is on the outside, inside of my thigh, and it couples with this foot to control the leg, and to control the knee, because he turns this in. So I want to just hold this still. I don't want him to have this motion anymore. He's squeezing the legs together like a clamshell. So I'm going to hold this knee open this way. That's what this hand does. And then this foot, I'm going to relieve some of the pressure in my thigh with this hand by pushing the hook down. That's all. Now, am I going to remove it entirely? My arms versus his leg? No, the leg's pretty strong. But I am going to change the angle enough on the knee. So even if he holds tight, I'm going to change the angle on the knee enough to hold it open. and I'm going to change the angle on the shin enough to get it a little bit lower. And now maybe it's going to leave me enough room that I can drive my knee forward and start to point it this way. See, this is better for me now, right? This is better. And I can keep his hook away from me. But of course he doesn't want that. So now this is a big battle. The battle is going to be who can turn the knee out and the foot out and keep the pressure of the knee open and the shin and hook off, or can he squeeze the knees tighter, keep the hook inside, and hold the heel so my foot doesn't turn? All of those things matter. And really, the pass that you initiate from there is more risky because you're still in too close proximity to the foot, to the hand, to be able to do anything reasonable. I'd have to extract my leg entirely in order for me to pass the guard. So the battle here is maybe even before he puts the De La Riva in, right? Like this, before he even puts it in, as he's looking to insert it, I'm preventing it just the same way he's establishing it to prevent this guard pass or this open position. As he looks for the De La Riva, I'm already turning and keeping it out, right? Something like this, I'm over top with the pressure on the leg. Okay, so that's just this battle of inches where does he establish it or does he not establish it? If he doesn't, it's because I'm able to hold it open, turn the foot, and put the pressure on the knee out. If he does, then he wins that battle. Now I've got to find another way to pass. Let's assume that he's already in this De La Riva position. He has the heel strongly. He has the hook all the way in. The legs are tight. He's controlling the thigh. He can mess with my base away or in at will. And on top of all of that, he has the grip. The only thing I have is this. My base is back here and nowhere else. So what I'd like to do is just hold this leg. And if I can reach his leg, even if he's holding my grip, with the second hand, that's great. If not, it's all right. Right? He may be trying to keep it off. So I'm going to just touch the leg, and the back leg I'm going to step over. Now, if I make this leg straight here like this, he can start to mess with my base too much. So I want to make sure that I'm putting and driving pressure on this knee against the back of his thigh. I want him to react. That's what I want. I want him to react so that when he feels this pressure, he pushes me. Exactly, because when he pushes me, look what this leg does. It goes straight. Does that make sense? Right? So when I push him and he pushes back, I can step over and hold the leg out of the way. Now, I don't even need the hands so much. What I do need to do is make sure that I control his hip. This leg is in a very nice position to control his hip. Once I clear the outer leg, I can start to sit my knee across the hip. When I do this, it's going to be natural for me to touch the chest. And why is it natural for me to touch the chest? Well, one, just for balance, a little bit of balance, right? I want to point the knee this way. But also because he may sit up. When he sits up, it's so he can make a base here and scoot the hips away and then reestablish his position, or perhaps look for one of these sitting sweeps. I can't let him do that. So since I need the balance anyway, let's go back. Once I apply some pressure here and I get him to react, and I step over and land in a very nice solid base, I let his leg go all the way straight, step over, keep it here. Now I just touch the chest. Look, I never start to reach here, because remember, that's that sweep. I roll there, over the shoulder. I can't let him get that. My base has to be low and centered like this. The knee and the elbow are always connected, so I'm tight. So let's see, he touches here, and I push on him, even if he has the grip. I get him to react, and now I go around the leg, and I block here. Now I'm just going to walk to the chest. Now he can't sit up. When he sits up and tries to turn, or tries to turn on his right side, I keep the shoulder down. And as I do, I open up the space. Look, I drag the leg this way, and I drag the chest this way, and I open up space for my knee to cut across. And this knee touches him the whole time. I keep tight pressure, and as I walk around the corner, I point my knee perpendicular to him. Not this way, but this way. And then I just sit next to him, and look how I land on his hip. If you walk around the back here, you'll see I'm not on the ground. I never lost contact with the hip. The whole time, I isolate the hip, the hip, the hip, and he can't move. The pressure here is so great that if he tries to escape, that's when I'm able to just sit next to him and hold the arm. And look, even here, I'm still off the ground. All of the weight is on the hip, because in order for him to escape, he needs to move the hip. So I drill it to the ground. I lock it to the ground. Right? This is just a way of thinking about moving. It's not any one type of pass. It's just what makes sense. My knee is locked, so before he even gets there, perhaps I try to open it, and I beat that and put pressure here. If he gets all the way, I have to make a base wherever I can. Right here's my base. So I'm trying to turn, the hook is deep, and he has the grip too. Not much I can do here. What I can do is start to drive. Look too how this foot, the one that he's holding, I may need to come off my heel and be on my toe. Sometimes my entire foot may come off the ground, and I put pressure like this. I've got to be able to balance here. Remember, if he starts to drag me and makes me touch the ground, he shoots my hand, and I go. So I can't get swept. How do I get swept? Because my shoulders go in front of my hips, and it dips my head. I have to keep my shoulders behind my hips forward. That means when I sit, it's like I'm in a chair. Even with the full de la Riva position established, I sit, and I touch, and I drive this way, right? Not this way. And now when I put the pressure, he reacts, and so I step over. And I sit across, touching him the whole time. Maybe the arm's in the way, I can pull it a little bit. When the knee touches, I have to point it this way. And then I sit next to him. The pressure's on the hip the whole time. Right, not on the ground, on the hip, and I keep his shoulders down. Then I can establish the side knot however I like. Does that make sense? Okay, that's good.